Asia is the largest continent in the globe out of the 7, taking up more than 17.2 million square miles, or around 30% of the planet's total land area. Currently, Asia is home to more than 4.6 billion people, or around 59% of the world's population. Asia is a continent with 49 countries and one of the strongest economies globally. A number of metrics are used to assess the health of an economy, including the Genuine Progress Indicator, the Human Development Index, and the Thriving Places Index. Some Asian nations are extremely impoverished, and their economies are in terrible shape. Here are Asia's top 10 poorest nations. The video is going to be very interesting, so make sure you stick to the end. Before we continue to our video, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to never miss any of our future uploads. Now let's get started. 10. Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, a former Soviet Union member, is a developing producer of goods like cotton, grapes, uranium, gold, copper, and petroleum gas. The profits from these industries are primarily going into the pockets of a small subset of citizens due to widespread bureaucratic corruption. Though, additionally, 14% of people live in poverty and 5% of the population is unemployed. Despite having the 5th largest cotton sector, the nation's economy suffered from sluggish commerce with China and Russia. 9. Cambodia. Human resources are scarce in Cambodia, and income disparity is pervasive. Despite recent economic successes, the nation still struggles with poverty, and the government has not done much to provide the essential infrastructure to help millions of its citizens escape poverty. The GDP per capita of Cambodia in 2020 is $1,512. Approximately 16% of the total population lives below the poverty level. Additionally, the nation's public debt is 30.4% of its GDP. Tourism, agriculture, industry, and mining are just a few of the industries that help this country's economy thrive. Due to corruption, a lack of job prospects, and bad infrastructure, Cambodia is the poorest country in Asia despite having these businesses. 8. Myanmar. In instance, the rural areas, where roughly 70% of the population resides, are home to about 26% of Myanmar's population who live in poverty. Metal and agricultural goods like rice, vegetables, poultry, and fruit support the economy. Due to poor economic administration and corruption, the public debt in the economy is increased and now accounts for 33.6% of GDP. As a result, the business environment is unfavorable and there is a shortage of infrastructure, and thus included in poorest countries. 7. Pakistan. Despite having abundant natural resources, 40% of Pakistan's population endures extreme poverty. Governmental elitism and corruption, conflicts between the religious and secular worlds, and a lack of democratic ideals are all contributing factors to this dysfunction. Only 2.6% of the nation's total GDP is allocated to education, while defense accounts for the majority of other national expenditures. As a result, about half of Pakistan's population lacks formal education. In 2021, the GDP per capita in Pakistan amounted to around $1,562.26. Additionally, with a public debt that is 67% of GDP and growing, it is ranked 147th in the world. There are 238.181.34 inhabitants, 6.3% of whom are unemployed, and 24.3% of whom live in poverty. The GDP is composed of 56.5% services, 19.1% industry, and 24.4% agriculture, with a real GDP growth rate of 5.4%. The majority of the labor force is in agriculture, about 42.3% of the workforce. The economy remains one of the poorest in Asia due to political conflicts and a weak business climate for foreign investors. 6. Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is also the poorest nation in Asia, according to GDP per capita. The poverty rate in Kyrgyzstan is about 32% of the total population. The country's reliance on agriculture and the disparities in access to resources and knowledge among its citizens are the main contributors to poverty in Kyrgyzstan. A lack of adequate banking and financial services in many Kyrgyzstan regions discourages investment and slows down the country's economic expansion. About 3% of the total population is unemployed, and 20% of people live in poverty. With a GDP composition of 14.6% agriculture, 31.2% industry, and 54.2% services, it has a real GDP growth rate of 4.6%. Remittances, mining, and agricultural production including the production of meat and cotton, drive its economy. It still depends on foreign aid, which accounts for about 5% of GDP. 5. Nepal. The absence of industry, political unrest, and reliance on agriculture in Nepal are the main causes of its poverty. Despite having abundant natural resources, Nepal hasn't made use of or profited from them by exporting them to other nations. An increasing 26.4% of GDP state debt is present in Nepal. About 3% of the overall population of 30,424,878 are unemployed, with 15.4% of them being between the ages of 15 and 24. Additionally, almost 25% of the population lives in poverty, with an inflation rate of 4.5% and a real GDP growth rate of 7.9%. The economy was also negatively impacted by the 2015 earthquake, which severely damaged the country's infrastructure in addition to its landlocked location and sparse infrastructure. 4. Syria. 80% of Syrians lived in poverty, or less, a 45% increase from 2007. The Syrian civil war, which has damaged medical and educational facilities, is the primary reason for the sudden increase in poverty. One of the best ways to escape poverty is via education. But because of the violence, about half of Syrian children no longer attend school. Syria has likewise had exceptionally high inflation rates recently, with its greatest rate of 121.29% occurring in 2014. Syria has a real GDP growth rate of 36.5% and per capita GDP of $6,373 in 2021 to make up 60.8% of the GDP, followed by agriculture, 20%, and industry, 19.5%. Milk, fruits, wheat, and barley are some of the agricultural items produced. The economy faces continual hurdles that limit its growth, including the never-ending, brutal civil conflict, ongoing infrastructure destruction, and issues with foreign trade, to name a few. 3. Tajikistan. Tajikistan consistently ranks as the second or third poorest nation in Asia by the majority of metrics. Tajikistan's economy stagnates due to a lack of infrastructure. Tajikistan has one of the largest remittance economies in the world as a result of the high number of qualified workers that leave the nation in pursuit of better employment possibilities. Additionally, the civil war in Tajikistan in the 1990s damaged almost one-fifth of the nation's schools, preventing children from receiving an education, which is one of the main elements in reducing poverty. It comes in at 157th in the world according to global GDP comparative rankings. Real GDP growth for its economy is 7.1%, while consumer price inflation is 7.7%. Agriculture makes up 28.6% of the GDP, followed by industry, 25.5%, and services, 45.9%. The economy continues to experience difficulties after the civil war, as seen by the country's 50.4% GDP public debt and 2.4% unemployment rate. 2. Yemen. According to the Human Development Index of the United Nations, Yemen is one of the least developed countries in the world, coming in at number 168 out of 177. Yemen's protracted civil war, corruption, and poor economic management are to blame for the country's poverty. More and more Yemenis are living below the poverty level as a result of the civil war. 79% of people in the country live in poverty, while 65% are considered to be extremely poor. Yemen GDP per capita was at level of $620 in 2020. The urban population is 38.5% of the overall population. Agriculture makes up 20.3% of the GDP, industry 11.8%, and services 67.9%. The ongoing conflict in Yemen has a significant impact on the country's economy, leading to increasing inflation, halted exports, restricted imports, and infrastructure destruction. 1. Afghanistan. The Taliban retook power in Afghanistan after the United States and United Nations withdrew their forces in the middle of 2021. The Taliban's ongoing conflicts with ISIL, as well as its forced closure of female-owned businesses and refusal to permit girls to attend school, are widely viewed as conditions unlikely to lead to a more robust and stable economy. However, the long-term effects of this change on Afghanistan's economic situation are yet to be seen. It is located in southern Asia, and its neighbors are Pakistan and Iran, with a GDP composition of 23% agriculture, 21.1% industry, and 55.9% services. Its GDP is rated 175th in the world. Agriculture and trade with China, as well as foreign grants and aid, are the main drivers of its economy. Its economy continues to be unstable as a result of political issues, drought, the Taliban war, and COVID-19, leading to a 5% inflation rate and a 23.9% unemployment rate. Hope you guys enjoyed our video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more videos. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.